we have additional folks join us as we go, then that'll be even better. So I will be sharing my screen. We'll do the traditional asking of whether people can see it or not. I'm getting some thumbs up, so that's great. So thank you everybody for joining us this afternoon for this tune in to tune up session on grant facilitation. So the who, what, why, when, and where of what we do on the grants team here in the Office of Research Services. So our kind of structure for what we're going to do at this session today is we'll start with a brief presentation just to give you an overview of who we are and our services. And then we have a panel of researchers that's agreed to come and just give some of their experience and insight into the grant application process, their experiences working with us in ORS. And then there'll also be an opportunity for some Q&A with them at the end of the session. So we'll start out with who we are here on the grants team. So there are 4 grant facilitators within ORS. We like to call ourselves the dream team. And we are really here to support the research enterprise however we can. So I'll just ask those of us who are here to introduce themselves. So Barb, if you want to start us off.
Sure. Thanks, Liz. I'm Barb Flynn, and I'm the Research Facilitator for Social Sciences and Humanities.
Somiraa.
Hello, everyone. I'm Somiraa Saeed. I'm the Research Facilitator for Health.
And I guess I maybe should have started off with this, but my name's Liz Vanderlinde. I'm the Research Facilitator for Natural Sciences and Engineering. And then the 4th member of our team, who I don't think is here right now, is Michelle Beidel. So she's the manager of research grants, and she also handles all of the institutional grant portfolio. So that includes things like CFI, CRC, other research chairs, and any programs that impact at an institutional level. So this schematic here is meant to represent the life cycle of a grant. So it's divided into 4 stages. So divided into pre-award and post-award, and we really provide support for all aspects of this funding cycle. Searching for funding, applying, managing the funds after you're successful, and then kind of activities towards the end of a project closure, or if there are additional needs to continue the project in different ways. So to provide a little bit more detail into that in terms of searching for funding, the kinds of supports that we're able to offer include providing advice about funding programs. So that could be letting researchers know what funding programs are available generally, or a more detailed advice about what research, kind of matching up research project needs and interests with the appropriate funding opportunities. We can provide some support to partnership development. So if you have partners or contacts within partner organizations and you would like support for explaining funding opportunities to your partner, you know, what their requirements are, you know, there are certain programs that involve matching of partner funds and leveraging funds in different ways, so we can contribute to project development in that way. We also announce funding opportunities. Right now that is done through the research list. So if you aren't already subscribed to the research mailing list and GroupWise, if you sign up to that, that's where we send out funding opportunities. And then we also provide support through the Tri-Agency Cohort Program, which is an internal program that is run to support kind of the major funding programs within each of the tri-agencies. So the NSERC Discovery Program, the SSHRC Insight and Insight Development Program, and then a couple of different key health programs, including the CIHR project grant and the SURF establishment grant. When you're ready to apply for funding, there's some additional services that we're able to provide for support, including budget development activities. We can review grants. We're happy to review grants at any stage. If you have a really preliminary draft, we'll look at that. If you have kind of a polished version, we'll look at that. We're willing to look at multiple revisions, go back and forth with you, as much support as you need, as long as we have the time. So that's really key to a lot of this service, and kind of the level of support that we can provide is having enough time to do that. And so really the sooner you can get in touch with us when you're planning to develop something, the more we're able to contribute. We can draft letters of support. Certain funding programs require letters of support from the institution or from partners. And then we also manage institutional approvals. So all research grants require institutional approval before they're submitted. And who provides that approval depends on the amount that you're requesting. And so we are the ones that review applications and then recommend them for approval. So once a grant application has been awarded funds, our role within that process takes on a couple of different forms. So sometimes we are in the position where we need to notify researchers. We also notify senior leadership and communicate funding program results at an institutional level. We also advise researchers on the funding terms and conditions, especially if it's a new opportunity that researcher hasn't received before. Then we can make sure that all of the terms and conditions are clear so that they can be met successfully and we don't run into any kind of roadblocks or barriers while the project is unfolding. We ensure compliance requirements are met. So this includes research ethics, human research ethics, animal care approvals, and cannabis for approvals for any projects involving cannabis. We're also the ones who request new fund setup. So we communicate with research finance and let them know when it's appropriate to open a new account and start releasing funds. And we can also assist with fund transfers. So things like subgrants or invoicing agreements if a project has collaborators at other institutions that need to receive a portion of the funding. And finally, around project closeout towards the end of projects, we can support with requests for extensions or other project amendments if there are changes or to partners or collaborators. We can help facilitate those requests, usually to the funder. And we can provide support for reporting. Most of the financial reporting support comes from financial services, but if there's other types of reporting that needs to happen, we can provide some support for that as well as needed. So that's kind of a snapshot of what we do. And now I'll pass it over to Somiraa to fill in some of the other W's.
Thank you so much, Liz. So the main goal of our team on the research services is to promote the research enterprise at UVR. So we're here for you to develop a competitive grant application. And why we do it is for obvious reasons. Like you all know that research funding resources, either federal or provincial, are limited. And the funding programs are increasingly competitive. So we need to work on a strong competitive application to get the funding. Also, there are now the research landscape is ever changing and evolving with an additional requirements from the federal agencies that's becoming more complicated. And we are here to help you interpret those requirements and navigate and how to include them best for the benefit of your application. So those additional requirements that came into effect were equity, diversity, and inclusion consideration in your research design and practice, research data management plan development, open access policy, and research security. And and so on. So we are here for you to help you navigate through this and making sure that you are the subject matter expert in the science part. And we're here to provide any advice on those additional requirements. So we always want to make sure that the most competitive application is going on and it's aligning with our university strategic plan. And also we try to help promote any, all of our UFR research priorities, including climate and environment, digital futures, living heritage, and health and wellness. So next, please. So we have here some, I would say tips, the top 10 that we picked to have a competitive grant application. The first one is starting early. And when I say early is not 2 weeks before the submission deadline, I would say 2 to 6 months, depending on the complexity of the funding program. So you have to put the time and plan for it ahead. And this is part of your preparation for submitting an application. Also follow the 3 C's of communication. Always be concise, clear, and complete in your application. Fulfill all the requirements, have a clear objective, know your audience. When you write your application, you write to the reviewers and you will speak to all the reviewer criteria of evaluation. Also involve your stakeholders, and stakeholders not only the researcher in your research team, but also knowledge users, any partners, industrial or not-for-profit partners. So you have to take their input from the beginning, even like with creating your research question, and through the development of your proposal and application, and through the dissemination of your results. So you have to make them feel involved and make sure that you take advantage of their expertise, because sometimes they are they have some lived experience that would make your application and proposal really stronger. Also read the instructions. So I know like we're here to provide you with a snapshot. Like I won't say like sometimes we provide a snapshot of the instruction, but you have any queries, please come to us. But we encourage you to read the instructions and follow them. It takes some time, but will save you a lot of going back and forth if you make sure that you follow all the instructions. Always like feasibility is a big thing in any review of the application, but make sure that you balance between feasibility and the novelty of your project and its impact. Make sure that your methodology is clear to your reviewers, linear, and also achievable in the timeline of the project. The budget is always critical. It has to be, all the expenses has to be eligible and justified. And also it should reflect all of the research activities in the, it should mirror them and reflect all the research activities of the proposal. We encourage you to take advantage of all the available resources at UBAR. So we are here for you as long as you reach out to us early enough. We can share with you previous successful applications. We have consent from some like successful applicants to share those applications, and also some peer review guidance, like assigning you a mentor to, or someone in your field or outside of your field to have a look on your application and provide you with critical feedback. Also, we have obviously at UVAR, there's current and previous committee members serving on tri-agency committees. So also their help is really valuable. And our council leaders, we have 3 like all that, like we have Dr. Mohammed Babu for CHR, and Dr. Raymond Blake for SHIRK, and Dr. Catherine Bethune for INSERC. So their expertise and guidance is invaluable. So as long as you reach out early enough, we can connect you with these reviewers. Also, as I mentioned before, don't overlook any of the additional requirements additional to your research proposal, including any knowledge mobilization activities, EDI consideration, like the training of highly qualified personnel also is a very important aspect, especially in the INSERC applications. Next, please. Like feeling now like a broken record, please connect with a research facilitator early and often. So we can serve you better if you reach out to us like ahead of time. So when we do our grant facilitation. So we can start working with you as long as you have an idea and we know like we can match you to a funding opportunity. So we can start working or developing the grant application together, starting from that. As I said, it could take from 2 to 6 months. It's a good thing that we have the cohort program usually in the summer that helps you like not only develop the full application, but developing it in pieces and section and reviewing it so that you have enough time to incorporate any critical feedback by the submission deadline. So we try to start early to get the outcome that we are aiming for. And the second piece is when it comes to the internal deadline, which is usually 2 weeks before the agency or the funding agency deadline, we can help facilitate the review process and requesting the institution approval for your application to be submitted to the funder. Also, we have in our previous workshop, we talked more extensively about our cohort program and the President Research Seed Grant and SSHRC Explore Grant. I think today we sent a reminder out. So please, if you're interested, reach out to us, and the deadline would be May 15 for this application for internal funding. And also I have here a couple of the important deadlines. The big one, NINSTIC Discovery Grant, the notice of intent is August 1st, and the full application is November 1st. Also, the CHR project grant, we have 2 cycles. Next week, I have the spring call deadline, and usually the fall is in September. And also the SSHRC establishment grant in 2 weeks will be the deadline. So, when I'm talking about those start working for your next cycle application if you would like to submit to any of those funding programs. Next, please. So where we do it, so you can find us actually in the Kinesiology and Health Studies building, CK227. So we're mostly in person. You can come pay us a visit, stop by our office. We're here to help you. And also we can do Zoom meetings or you can email us or phone us. So whatever is convenient for you will be timely responding to your inquiries. So now I'll hand it to Barb. She will be moderating our hopefully great and interactive discussion with our panelists. I have just a quick note. I just received a note from Dr. Tom McIntosh that he won't be able to make it today because an urgent matter that he has to attend to. So here you go, Barb.
Okay, thanks, Somiraa. So our panelists today are Arthur Sittam, who will kind of be representing the NSERC side of research, and Dr. Christine Ramsey, who is a SSHRC scholar and also the ADR for the Faculty of MAP. So I think I'll start with you, Arthur. If you could give us just a brief introduction about yourself and your research, and then go into giving what you would say is really good advice for developing an effective application.
Thanks, Barb. So, hello, everyone. My name's Dr. Arthur Sittam. So I'm a CRC Tier 2 in small modular reactors. Oh, sorry, I think my headphone just died on me. Can you still hear me? Yep. Okay. Sorry about that. Right. So I'm quite new at the university. I only started back. It's been less than a year since I've been a faculty member. So I'm very much in a early career researcher. So I guess with that in mind, there's a certain kind of grain of salt to sort of the general experience. I don't have the years of grant writing in this case. But I guess some things in terms of best advice. A couple of things kind of came to mind. First one was a sort of a long-term kind of a vision in terms of where the sort of big issues that you want to try to address are. So in my case, being in the nuclear field, climate change and is sort of the main sort of topic that gets sort of hammered on, as well as energy security. So I'll kind of keep coming back to that as a major theme for sort of trying to address these things, as well as HPP development in the field. It's a very kind of specialized skill set. So in many cases, students won't have this coming out of their undergrad, but they almost never will. have had sort of an adequate enough experience in this coming out of their undergrad. So a lot of graduate programs and whatnot are kind of relied upon for giving them that experience. And so that's something I bring up quite often in my grants in terms of HQP sort of arguments. The other thing, I guess, in terms of major advice would be from a collaborator standpoint. A lot of my grants are pretty collaboration heavy, and it varies quite a bit grant to grant. There's not sort of the same person I sort of come back to and collaborate with. And sort of really when I'm trying to look to sort of establish those relationships or sort of extend them, it's kind of looking for where there's sort of a good strategic partnership that can be formed, and especially if it can be made long term. So I guess those would be kind of the two big sort of pieces of advice I would have.
Great, thanks, Arthur. Christine, you could do a brief introduction, and then what's your advice for a successful application?
Yes, hi Barb, hi everyone. Thanks for inviting me. It's just always wonderful to talk about how to fund research and the best ways to go about it. So I'm a film scholar, film studies, and I've been here for 25 years at the U of R. And I'm currently serving as was said, the Associate Dean of Grad in the Faculty of MAP, Media, Art, and Performance. And I've been doing that for 3 years, and I've signed up for 3 more. And in that context, I'm very, happy and excited to try to help people, in addition to the way the ORS helps people with, getting the grants and, planning research that will be funded. My best advice, should I go to that one, Barb, or? Yeah, okay, well, so much of what's already been said is really key. I can't emphasize enough, attend the ORS workshops. These are, really, really, really helpful. And to the point of, one of the best things you can do is start early. I completely agree that I would be starting 6 months, pardon me, 6 months early, probably 10, to start a grant project like this. And the workshops that are offered are really helpful because they really start early, to pull together something like this and really think it through and give yourself enough time to think and to do the other things that are on your desk. You will not get this done in 2 weeks. It's just not possible. So the best ones, I think, are ones that start early and just give yourself time to think and breathe step by step. With the help of a workshop, it can really, show you the ropes, taking each bit of this is how Barb runs the SHRC one, taking out each bit of what's required and what's asked for and discussing it over a couple of successive weeks. I think you run May to July typically, Barb?
Yep.
And, the key things are, starting early, really, not being afraid to get help and advice from others, to have drafts read, because something that's might seem very clear to you and that, you have really processed because this is your research work, in the writing of it, it might not be totally clear to others. And there's always the advice, at least on the SHRC side, of, we want this as much in lay people's terms as possible. You don't need to dumb it down, but you wouldn't be writing it at the high level of, an academic paper on that subject. Astrophysics, like, sure, your committee is going to probably have an astrophysicist or two, but there might be a couple other styles of people who are equally intelligent and can read an application. But if your application is too full of jargon or too full of, I've seen people, instead of, SHRC always gives this framework of like, introduce it, give the context, give the theory, give the method, give the significance. And I just, absolutely suggest to use what they're asking, pair it back to them, the kind of shape that they want to see you write this in. And I remember seeing one grant where it truly was like a paper for an academic journal. Like it was just giving the idea in a wonderful format, the referee journal format, but it's like, this is completely not what SSHRC or a jury is looking for. You'll have juries of your peers, and you'll have people on there who are in your field, but some people won't be in your field, but will be very capable of understanding what you're after if you put it in that kind of shape and coherent form. So when SSHRC or NSERC, I don't know if they do the same, or CIHR, is saying, these are the parameters on which we're judging your application, then the first thing you want to do is use those parameters and use them very clearly as section dividers, in your grant. I would also say the best advice is just write the grant, do your best, and try. And often, if you don't get it the first time, we often see people get it the second time. There's a sense that there, as I'm saying, there's a kind of a style to grant writing that you really can get the hang of it if you persist and don't give up if you don't get it the first time. That's for our top scholars. They've been rejected, and what I typically see from the people who have a good track record is they kind of say, oh, they didn't understand what I was trying to do. They do that for 5 minutes, and then they just put it aside, take their lumps and just say, well, whatever, I'm committed to this project, so I'm going to take their advice where it makes sense to me, and I'm going to try to tweak it into success next time. And that seems to me, when you're kind of committed to the project you want to do and persistent, the sun will always shine. It'll work out. And also because there's so much support here from the ORS around, I know Barb will look at budgets in real detail for people. And, that's always a thing that I think is a bit intimidating, especially to new scholars, is, oh, well, what can I spend it on? And how do I articulate this? So that's a few ideas that I have.
Great, thanks, Christine. Back to you, Arthur. Can you talk a little bit about the kind of supports that you've received through the ORS, and if you've found them valuable, or if you may have other suggestions that would be helpful as you move forward with more grant applications?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a couple areas. There's a bunch of different things the ORS does that have been very helpful, especially somebody just getting into grant writing. A couple that stand out to me, so this is an exhaustive list, would be help when it comes to partner support. Many cases, sort of the different companies and organizations I'm talking to may or may not be familiar with each of the different granting opportunities, and sometimes it'll be like just happened a little while ago. The government's just, we made a new one. This new opportunity. We haven't released it before, so it's a one-off or something that has sort of an unusual kind of format and set of criteria that doesn't really align with what you would normally have. And so, getting a good partner support is has been a massive thing. Help in terms of kind of budget structuring, where kind of makes sense, sort of like how generally for whatever particular competition you're going for, how your budget should generally be structured. Or how much is going to be towards HQP versus equipment. Sometimes it's more flexible. Sometimes we could look to put a lot of your money towards HQP. That's always really helpful, and that changes grant to grant opportunity. It's very good. Looking over, like, reviewing of drafts. So I mean, Liz has been fantastic for, in terms of, okay, here's my path at this. Have I made kind of clear that I've hit individual parts of what's being asked for the grant, and if I haven't addressed one aspect of the requirements adequately enough, then that's to go back to the drawing board and try to tweak it so it's sort of touching on whatever that aspect is for that particular competition. other stuff. I mean, I guess I could go on here. Helping it, especially when there's like multi-person teams. Some of these grant opportunities, if there's like multiple sort of professors applying for it at once, sometimes it's very helpful in terms of, okay, we're going to organize a meeting all together to discuss how we approach this topic or that topic. Has been very useful, very helpful. I think that's what covers a lot of these sort of like big points. There's obviously more of the ORSs. The services they provide are quite extensive.
Great, thanks so much. Christine, your thoughts?
You know, in support of what Arthur said, as well as, yeah, the way that the ORS will find readers. You know, we'll just ask people like, you know, from another field. I'm in film studies, but they'll ask somebody from history, somebody who's had success with grants. I remember one that I did and I didn't get it. This was mid-career. I didn't get it. And then there was something happened and there was a turnaround and there was extra money. Maybe somebody didn't take theirs. And then, you know, 2 months later, I got it. So, you know, the door never firmly closes. I got it, but the commenter was just really, really helpful. And again, a person from outside my own field, but was, you know, when the grant went in, was just saying, just really useful things that someone in film studies might not have questioned because they'd make assumptions. Well, you share the common field. But for this person, it wasn't really quite clear, you know, what I meant in this particular section. So the ORS finding just people around the U who volunteer and say, sure, I'll read 2 or 3 of these. And the comments that way were just really, really great in that notion of grant writing. You know, again, to reiterate that writing a grant is very different and has a certain kind of clarity, a certain kind of, sometimes people think they're being boring. You're not. You're just stating the facts, being pedestrian, making it clear what the goals of the project are. And that's what I remember that person, you know, had found just some things that they thought were extraneous. That this isn't needed. You want just a really clear and step-by-step, you know, answer to the funding criteria. Here's what I'll do and how. And it took that person to notice that, because the film studies person, you know, kind of, you know, it didn't occur to them that for others that might not be that section necessary, and was kind of diverting this reader from just seeing clearly what it was I was trying to do. So.
Okay, thank you. So back to you, Arthur. After everybody gets kind of down when their applications aren't successful. So if you have any advice, how do you manage rejection? And if you can recall any like really memorable comments that you've received from reviewers, either that you thought were, you know, completely absurd or have been, you know, super helpful to you over the years that you've been applying for things.
Yeah, absolutely. So I was thinking a bit about how to answer this question before when I got invited to the panel originally. I think maybe I'll ask the first part. So the memorable reviewer comment. No individual comment really jumps out at me. I mean, I think we've all had sort of a grant come back where the person in question is like, do like, you know, even sort of know what I don't know, did you read sort of this part or that part? You know, it is what it is. But the one thing that definitely sticks with me, if I see when reviewing the reviewer comments, if I see a trend in terms of something, this is maybe a little bit technical, but I think it's a decent example. Maybe I do work in an area molten salt, kind of corrosion stuff, and it's obviously it's a molten pool that's quite corrosive, and so most of these studies are just done just in a lab setting. Put sample in, we're going to study it. Here's our different kind of methods for studying it, and we'll look at it after, and that'll be, you know, that's you know, in terms of development, that's already something like this is asking a decent amount for these types of studies. But I remember when I submitted my CRC, the one sort of reviewer comment that came up in a over and over again is you need to include some kind of irradiation. And that took sort of that kind of took me aback. I was sort of you walk before you can run with this kind of thing. Usually those types of studies don't happen until you've really got something that you think is worthwhile. But it kept coming up as a theme. And so sure enough, when it came time to sort of submit my next next grant on the subject, I made a point of, okay, we're going to incorporate not actual putting it in a reactor, but doing some sort of a pre-annealing of a sample with some some irradiation from an accelerator to kind of simulate some of it, because that was the theme that the reviewers brought up. So they really want to see that particular aspect incorporated into these types of studies. It's often not. Oftentimes people will just look at the material itself, but if that's the general theme that's coming up in multiple reviewer comments, then okay, I'll see about incorporating that for the next time I submit. That's probably the one that stood out to me the most, is that kind of trend in comments like that, rather than any individual. You get some aspect of it. The other, in terms of rejection, I think Christine said it best. It happens, and just that maybe next time, or if you've got kind of a clear vision for what you, especially the way I sort of view it. And again, I'm sort of an ECS, so maybe take this with a grain of salt. Maybe this is a little bit partially naive. I apologize for that. But sort of a vision for, okay, we need to, this is a thing that's needed within the field, and there's sort of a good kind of like general motivation from from government or from society to solve the problem. Then you'll be able to get it through. If it's a real need for this type of research, or a real need for this type of HQP, or this type of a development, then you'll just come at it next time. And if there's anything to be tweaked, it's kind of trying to get whatever that sort of motivation is, maybe a little bit better. But I would say if you're really locked into, yes, this is a problem that needs to be solved, then it'll happen. Yeah, I think that answers that.
Great, thank you. Christine.
Well, I remember on that grant that I didn't get and then I got, one comment of the reviewer was, and that made me feel really good, because I thought, well, good, then this research project is really doing what I think research should do as a research teaching enterprise. And that grant, it was for 5 grad students and an undergrad. So most of the grant money was going toward training, not, there was some for other stuff, but a big proportion that I guess they typically, wouldn't see. And the reviewers said, oh my God, they've never seen like a training grant that was this kind of ambitious and generous, like to the students. And it was linked to the Mackenzie Art Gallery. So it was like serving the community and what they needed, and this project that I was working on collaboratively with other people. And these students got to go down to the Mackenzie and work with the curator there and work with this internationally renowned artist. And it just was, that's been my best research project. And a lot of it because the support was just so well built into train and mentor students. And so I loved that project. And the readers noticed that you're really doing a good job here of trying to make research meaningful, knowledge mobilization, one of the key things that they ask for. So, I loved that project, and I was happy to see that comment. You can get other comments, as I think, Arthur said, did they read it? Did they actually really read it? Because I've seen other people who, when they don't get the grant, and that 10 minutes of real annoyance. And it's true. I mean, you can sometimes look at what the person has written and read the jury's comment and say, did the jury not read this? But that to me then goes to, you must follow the instructions to the letter, and keep your ideas within their model structure, because the juries are reading so many of these, and the juries are looking for the information where it's supposed to be, you know. But, you know, they don't want to see some of the training up in the theory, you know, they want it clear and coherent, or they may in fact misread it. They may in fact just say, oh, well, where was that? Well, it was right here. But maybe, and indeed, when I looked, well, that's not truly where you'd expect that information to be. It should be in this other section. So while not being, I mean, there has to be some creativity in a project and in writing the grant. There shouldn't be too much in terms of following those instructions and fitting it in so that, you know, so it's fair and equitable, so that everyone has 6 pages, right? That to me, it's fair and equitable. Why would we all have to write to the same number of pages? And then, you know, writing to those sections that you're being judged on, the challenge, the, you know, and so on. And, you know, and that only takes reading the damn thing 25 times. Like, really, that's how you get a good draft. It's not just draft number 2, it's like draft number 20, truly, because then you start to hone, and then you've got the structure in, and then you start to, oh, it's going over the page limit. That's when you start with the word tweaking to preserve the idea, but get some of the fat off it. And, you know, that truly is the business of grant writing. Start early, follow the instructions, and, you know, read it as many times as it needs to be read to be pretty well, you know, clear as a bell, you know.
Great, thanks, Christine. Arthur, we have a bit of a different question for you, since you're not an ADR, but in your opinion, what faculty level support would be the most beneficial to you when you're preparing to write your grants?
Faculty level support, that level. Maybe Christine can go first. Let me think about that for just a second. I just,
Okay.
let me just, yeah.
Okay, no
Okay,
problem. As an ADR, Christine, how do you set out to help researchers?
Yeah, well, it's a big part of my job. I set out by participating with Barb as the SHRC anchor and expert. When she runs things, when she runs grants, I'm there and I tell my faculty, and when I see things come across research related that they will see in the research, you know, email list at uregina.ca, I always get the admin assistant in the dean's office to resend those to my faculty. If there are people, I think strategically, like, oh, this person really needs to see this grant, so I'll do a direct email to them. So always trying to just, you know, encourage them and say, there, look, this is an opportunity for you, and there's help in doing it. I also run, well, to me, it helps researchers to also help their students. I run a SHRC workshop for grad students. Same model, starting in June, kind of ending, actually that one ends more in August, and we meet every 3 weeks to, you know, to me, that's doing a service to researchers as well. Their grad students are coming in and they need to be funded. And I'm always surprised at the number of students who don't know about SHRC. They don't know that there would be national scholarship funding. You know, and so I always, you know, make sure that all our incoming students are kind of, well, they're invited to this workshop, but I kind of tone it a bit to suggest that you should be here. And one student said, do I have to? And I said, no, but if you'd like money to do your advanced research, you should show up. So it's kind of a thing where, you know, in as an ADGR, you gotta, you're always, well, just that's my job to inform people and make opportunities so they can shine, so that they don't feel too afraid to participate. I always try to make it, you know, like a thing that, sure, for new faculty who are coming in, I invite them, they come to the workshop, and then I'm explicit, like, this might not be the year for you. It might be too early. You know, if your idea isn't gelled yet for a first year prof, maybe your idea is not there yet, and that's okay. But starting early could mean starting a year early, just to familiarize yourself with what SSHRC can do for you. Get the information, and then maybe say there was a person, you'll recall Barb, who came to the workshops and then did not end up applying the first year. We had another person who came to the workshop first year, applied, didn't get it, but persisted and got it the next year. So, you know, that's, I think it's really important to just keep letting people know that there's support and opportunity, and, you know, a way to do this. There's something about grants and getting money that just makes people so nervous, and you know, they'll either be really vulnerable, nervous, like, oh, I can't possibly get it, or they'll just be arrogant, won't follow the instructions, and then get mad that, that their grant was a piece of shit, you know? So that's just people, right? That's just temperaments. But I enjoy this job because you gotta, well, sometimes I don't, Barb? Sometimes Barb and I go for coffee and we're like, oh, you know, do you believe this? But we try to keep that to a dull roar. But I do enjoy it because people are new to it. So you know, and it can be intimidating, and I don't mean to make fun. It can be intimidating, but it doesn't have to be so intimidating because there's so much support that comes from the ORS, and that, you know, truly is there to help people and to, you know, enable them to get their research agenda going. And, you know, if it doesn't happen for you the first time you join a workshop, just be familiar with it, and maybe next time you'll be ready. Yeah.
Great. Thanks, Christine. Any thoughts, Arthur?
Yes, a few of them. I guess I would say from a so for our own faculty's ADR, it's been very, very helpful in a number of different, you know, particular ways. Navigating certain aspects of international student hiring, sort of, okay, students taking programs, how, you know, depending on which particular program they end up in, master's or PhD, sort of how that sort of course schedule would end up flowing, and some of the other sort of nitty-gritty aspects of that. And then beyond that, I think the other faculty support, a lot of help when it comes to facilities, and I guess this one be a little more engineering specific, but some of the actual materials fabrication. So if I need something specific sort of manufactured, that would be, I would rely on for one of these grants as part of the equipment package. Kind of talking early about, okay, here's what this would look like. Is this going to be feasible for us to do if we actually get the money? Is something like this kind of a sort of that could be done? Or in terms of where equipment would sit and different compatibilities with that, it's been sort of very helpful, as well as sort of navigating some of the larger services. So do electrical upgrades or things with the radiation lab, or aspects of that, really sort of as a good kind of touch point in the faculty to the various different sort of services that we'll need to reach out to and coordinate with to get stuff done. That's a purchasing, obviously, that's a, you know, when we actually get the grant, sort of what looks like for that. Yeah, kind of sort of as a sort of first stop to who to talk to with some of these sort of more nitty-gritty things. And then obviously the Office of Research Services is very helpful for that as well. For like, you probably want to reach out to this person prior to this to make sure that this is, you know, different aspects of it. Yeah.
Great, thank you. I think for all of us, we're so thankful that you, Arthur and Christine, were able to join us, and their insights have been really invaluable and helpful. So we still have some time. If anybody has questions, either to the facilitators or to our panelists, please just unmute or raise your hands, and or if you don't want to talk, put it in the chat and we'll be happy to answer questions. Thanks, Christine, for your comment.
There's one question in the chat, Barb. Thank you. Question for facilitators. Are there any plans to introduce more support for administration of grants received?
Do you have something in particular in mind, Kayla? Just like kind of project management wise, or were you thinking?
She hasn't replied, but there's one more after hers. If she replies, we can come back to it. How's
Sure.
that? Okay. Oh, I do not have a question, but would like to say thank you for all the support provided. I was in Dr. Ramsey's workshop and it was really helpful providing step-by-step guidelines. So not a question, but a praise.
It's good. Thank you, Shelley.
I'll keep Kayla's question, and then if I can follow up with her if she wants to give more info.
Sure, that would be really helpful.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, sorry, Kayla, we couldn't hear you.
Oh, no, didn't.
But maybe if you want to contact me or directly, we can have a talk about that, or to Somiraa or
Yeah, she said sure. Thanks.
okay.
Okay, perfect.
So any other questions? If not, thank you very much for joining us. And again, particular thanks to Arthur and Christine. If you think of anything else that you want to ask, please just get in touch with any of us and we'll be happy to talk further. So thanks, everybody. Have a good rest of your day and lovely weekend.
Thank you.